So you grew up in Baltimore City.
Yes, West Baltimore.
What were some of the experiences while growing up in West Baltimore?
Some of the experiences,
Yeah, like what
um,
was it like? Like,
I guess, I don't know. For me, I guess typical experiences. I mean, when I was younger, I was outside playing until the street lights came on. My grandmother, she would open the door, yell out, Ariel, come on, it's time to come in. We rode our bikes. I put the little huggy juices in there, made the little motorbike sound.
right.
Uh, I mean, before all the reps and power centers, we went to the power center. I went to Hilton Power Center for a lot of years. That was real fun. Learned how to
So
shoot
you
pool.
real West Baltimore. You talking
Real.
about Hilton.
Yep. I grew up in Yale Heights.
Okay, West Baltimore in the house. Okay, so I hear you mention your grandmother. So that's who raised you.
Yes.
So what was that like?
It was. I guess it depended on the day.
Right.
It was pretty cool for the most part, and that's the older Ariel, talking. But I was removed from my parents at the age of 3 and placed into kinship care, which is a form of foster care with my grandparents. And so that transpired for about 9 years, and then she adopted me.
Right.
So I'm legally hers.
Okay.
But to answer your question, like initially I was pretty ashamed because most of my friends, they were raised by their parents, and so my friends would ask me sometimes like, oh, why does your grandmother pick you up from school? So I would come up with little lies about, oh, my mom's at work, my mom is there, when all actuality my sister and I, we were living with her.
Right.
But overall, our life, it was a good life. I was like her sidekick.
Right.
She get in the van to go to the store. I'm right there with her because I know that I'm going to get something.
Right.
I mean, my grandmother also is a twin.
Okay.
And because she's a twin, like I'm super close with some of my like second cousins.
Mhm.
So on the weekends, we would always go up to up the village. They lived on Woodridge. We would be up there. We would be playing with some of the more ratchet kids. I think I was a little sheltered. The more I
Okay.
talked to more people, the more I realized I was pretty sheltered. But overall, it was pretty cool living with my grandmother.
That's what's up. I had some grandma experiences myself.
Yeah, grandmas are cool. She's home.
Yeah, when they say when people have that aspect of their grandmother, they tend to exceed. So, what high school you went to?
I attended Emerson Westside High School. Yeah, I was there. I got a trade in surgical technician.
Okay, so are you in that field now?
Absolutely not.
What is it that you do now?
I am a social worker.
Oh.
Specifically, I am a inpatient psychiatric social worker.
Okay, what drove you there?
Well, I mentioned earlier that I was in foster care.
Mhm.
So, being in foster care, I interacted with social workers early on. I didn't really realize that that was their role until I got a little older. I knew that I wanted to be different from my other counterparts. And when I say counterparts, I mean my other family members. There are a lot of, cousins, aunts that just graduated high school and they went off into the workforce, but they were struggling,
Right.
And even my grandparents, even though I was unaware of our financial status, when I look back, I realized that they too were struggling, but I wanted more for myself. So I went to college. I was initially undecided. I changed to accounting because it was the very first, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm using my train of thought. It was the very first major that was listed. I did that for 2.5 years and realized I didn't care for it. I'm really not that great with numbers. I can do basic math, the basic math I can do, but then when you got into cost accounting manager, I was lost. So I, changed my major a couple times, and I took a social work and addiction class.
Okay.
And taking that class, it kind of opened my eyes to just some of the challenges that I was experiencing in my own family.
Right.
And it, I was just like, oh, I think this is something I want to do. So to make a long story short, that introduction is what kind of got me here.
Right. So for people that are interested in, social working,
Hmm.
what are some of the credentials needed? What is like the years of experience, or what is the qualifications necessary to be a social worker?
Sure, sure. So, just basic, because there's tiers to this, right? Like, so just to be a basic social worker, which is a LBSW, licensed bachelor social worker, you need to go to any 4-year college, get a degree in social work, and then you need to pass your licensure exam, the LBSW exam. Um, I'm a LCSWC, which stands for a licensed certified social worker clinical. It's one of the highest licenses that can be obtained
Okay.
in the social worker profession. And I'm clinical. I don't know if you caught that, but the clinical piece is at the end.
Okay.
And so I have the opportunity of going into my own practice.
All right.
But I feel like I know I answered your question, but I also just wanted to expand upon social work is super broad. Right. Most people, when they think about social workers, they think they're baby snatchers. Right. Only social worker is CPS.
Right.
But there's a lot of different social workers. You can go into politics like Barbara Mikulski, and
Okay. I never knew that.
Yeah, she's a social worker.
I never knew that.
You can like for myself, I'm in the medical field, but on the mental health piece. So again, I'm a psychiatric social worker. I work on an inpatient psych unit with patients that have chronic mental health, as well, they come in acutely, meaning that they're having some type of crisis and they need some intervention to get them back into a space where they can be reintegrated in the community. So a lot of our patients are there for a short period of time. It's not extended stay. But, so you have that. Then you also have child welfare, which are the baby snatchers. That's not the
Do you have any history with being a child snatcher? No, but did
Yes.
you ever cater to that part of social working?
You know what? Yes. Yes, I have. I was a baby snatcher.
So how was that? Let's expound on that. Let's expound on that, because I think a lot of people who experience that, part of life, far as having that child taken due to some conditions within their life. What is something that people who could potentially going through some things with their child and social working and stuff like that you can say that could shed some light on it, that could take it out of the negative space it's in? Because whenever you think of CPS, you just think negative. There's no positive aspect to it.
Sure. So let me first off just say that when a child protective service worker, a CPS worker, knock on your door, they're there to do an interview with you. There has been some type of allegation of child abuse or child neglect, and the neglect could be physical neglect or medical neglect. And so the worker is there to do an assessment, right? So when that person knocks on your door, they're not there to take your kid. They're there to ask you some questions, right? And I worked in Baltimore City. I realized we got a whole bunch of bogus reports, right? It was a lot of situations where mom, dads, they were beefing and the child was like a token. Or the same thing with maternal or paternal relatives, grandmom don't care for the mom or whomever, so a lot of these allegations, we realized they were false. So when I knocked on the door and I had a conversation, I realized, this is nothing to be concerned about. So what I would say is, a lot of times the CPS worker, they can give you a lot of great resources too. I did this work, I think, for a year and 4 months, and the reason why I left is because I felt like the morals and the values of the agency didn't align with mine.
Do you think there was some biasness within the social worker community dealing within CPS? So do you think some people come from a lifestyle that they don't identify with dealing with these children and these parents and stuff like that, and they may enter the home and the biased space as if, you should be doing this, or I don't, what I'm saying?
So, you know what? One of the biggest things, or one of the biggest takeaways for me, in social work school, was like, you have to leave your baggage at the door, right? So your biases, like, you really aren't supposed to take them in when working with people. However, that's, that is best practice, but that's not necessarily what happens. So yes, there are a lot of people that think that, kids should eat a full course meal instead of oodles and noodles. Kids, they should have their own bed to sleep in, opposed to sleeping on a twin with 3 other siblings. It's a lot of biases that play into why some children are removed. And I do think that, in this city there have been some egregious removals. Right. I wouldn't necessarily agree with them, but it's normally not about this type of stuff I'm talking about. It's normally about children who parents are battling with substance abuse. So a lot of the cases that I got, when a mom tested positive for methadone or not Suboxone, but methadone, when the baby was born, the hospital would call it in.
Right.
And, we would learn, okay, mom was on this program, her doctor prescribed it. So methadone it's been clinically proven that babies tend to do better with the moms being prescribed methadone than the mom copping heroin on the street. Right. Or other opiates. Right. So, but still, there is some biases that come into play, because then the hospital wouldn't be reporting this. Right. And then the social worker, you would think that it's at their discretion, because they're doing the intakes, they're interviewing multiple people to try to get information about this family, that they would be the person that make the final decision. But that wasn't the case when I was working in Baltimore City. If my supervisor or my unit manager or the program director felt that, looking at the snapshot of the allegation that was put in, that the baby was at risk, and hear what I'm saying, the baby was at risk, they would sometimes demand that the worker remove the baby. Right. Now the thing is, you're not supposed to remove any kids for risk. Right. It's supposed to be for safety concerns.
Right.
When there's a risk, you're supposed to put services in place.
Okay.
Keep in mind, I just said this mother, she was prescribed methadone.
Right.
So really, the risk has been mitigated.
Right. Basically.
But again, I think, and this is something that is apparent in the black community.
Right.
So again, me leaving Baltimore City, it was because I couldn't get with it, and I was.
So is your audience predominantly African American?
Absolutely. I want to, and this is a guesstimate, right? But probably 95% of my cases, they were black people, and I mean black Americans. They not like Africans that came over.
Are there some underlying things far as within the community of social working that you see that's common, such as is everybody running on bipolar? Is everybody running on this?
It's not even mental health concerns are prevalent whenever there's poverty, but it's poverty itself. It's food deserts. Right? It's the school systems where the families, they don't understand. They don't have a good understanding of how important it is to vote, because the resources are lacking.
Right.
It's the families where there's 3-4 generations in a household. Okay. It's also the families that are living in the quote-unquote projects, right? All of the homes that you can think of, Gilmore Homes, McCullough Homes, Latrobe Homes.
Let's try to clear a little something up, though, because I don't want people to see this and be like, oh, only people in the project or in this area are dealing with mental health. You also deal with. What I'm saying is, primarily my cases were coming from that, and that's because of the lack of education. Okay. I told you, a lot of times it was pettiness. It was family members being upset, and then they would make false allegations, or the teacher not understanding that the kid told them that they had oodles and noodles for dinner instead of some barbecue chicken, green beans, and mashed potatoes. So then we get this report. So yes, I'm sorry, I feel like I cut you up, but to answer your question, yes, I've gotten cases for the quote-unquote more prestigious, white counterparts. I remember I got another lady who, too, was on some type of medication maintenance program,
And I got the report, and when I went out, it was like I went to like an area in Canton, right?
Right.
More esteemed area.
Right.
The baby dad, or because he wasn't her husband, but the baby dad, he was a white male that made great money, and they had all of the things that they needed in the home, and the home was baby proofed, and he was also aware that she was on medication too. He was aware, and it was a case closed.
Right.
And like I mentioned to you before, a lot of these removals, they don't necessarily take place because of the worker. It's because of the higher ups who aren't doing the investigations.
Right,
they reading it on paper, and they're like, this baby is at risk.
Right.
Take that baby. And so that was a case where the program director wasn't like, take that baby.
Right.
She's like, oh, dad is involved. He has no substance issues. He has no mental health concerns.
Right.
Fine. And again, me as the worker, the doctor already cleared her to take this medication. So I'm not a freaking doctor, so I'm not going to go against what they're saying. But it doesn't matter about the skin color or about the additional resources. If I got another case for another mom, different ethnicity, similar support, but I was still advised to do something different. So, I mean, that was just kind of like my issue. But with the whole agency as a whole, I felt like it wasn't, our people were more so affected.
Okay.
I was in a place to educate families, and there were a couple of cases where, the risks were really great, but there was like strong supports. Maternal grandma already knew that her daughter couldn't care for this baby. So before the state could go in and take something, I told grandma, if mom is in agreement, y'all go down to the family court and have mom give you custody. Because if mom gives you custody, that doesn't take it away from your custody. It's like it's a third parent.
Right.
It's somebody else. So mom still has custody, dad still has custody, and now grandma, who is the primary, caretaker for this baby. And it just eliminates the agency, because when the agency gets involved, it's a lot of scrutiny.
Right. Damn, that's heavy though, man. That's heavy, just taking all that in. So social workers are pretty important in this world. Not just far as the baby snatchers, but just providing resources and, things like that to make sure once they come in your care that they're okay once they leave it.
So, there's a term that we like to use for social workers. We're considered change agents, right? Okay. Like, sometimes a person's life is the way it is because of lack of opportunity. Right? If a person has a willingness, a drive to be better, and they're given that resource, sometimes the sky's the limit.
Right.
So when you meet that right person that has just been trying to figure out how, and we can give them that how, it can be super impactful. I think probably all professions are important, but I do think that we're very important, and I think a lot of people, they don't really understand our role, you know.
So how is the turnover rate, though, as far as the people that come into your care and the people that's, out in the real world, How is y'all, are people becoming better due to, your care and resources, or are you seeing reoccurring people, or...
Are you talking about strictly in child welfare?
I mean, far as you're in, you're dealing with adults now, right?
And mental health.
Yeah, mental health. So far as in that space, far as the adults that, y'all come, y'all neutralize, and, you put the resources together, you push it back out into the real world. Are they reoccurring, patients, or do you not see them again, or do y'all follow up with them? Like, how does that work?
So that was a multi-layered question, and I'm going to do my best to answer all of that.
I'm sorry.
No, you good. You good. So
I just took a lot of information in.
No, you cool. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I think I've learned how to, answer a lot. So let's see. Okay, so you're strictly, let me just say this, right? Us being change agents is a lot, right? I feel like you have to have really great boundaries as a social worker to not burn out. It is it is super, super overwhelming at times. So in the child welfare, I think there's a high turnover of social workers as well as families that are like repeat offenders. And when I mean offenders, I mean like, because yeah, I got a lot of bogus stuff, but there's also people that, are, they are abusing children or neglecting children. Right. And I mean, you can provide the resource, but again, it starts with the person. They have to have a willingness to change. If that's not there, then I can't do anything about that. Now, if I was to move over to the mental health piece, it's a little different. So, we on a unit, I see people that have first breaks, meaning this was their first mental health concern, right? Early intervention, strong family support, and like a really, really good treatment team, these patients can do really, really well. The chronic mental health concerns, the schizophrenia, which is people that have hallucinations and delusions, the schizoaffective, which is the schizophrenia, hallucinations, delusions, and then the affect is the mood disorder, as well as the bipolar with psychosis, major depressive disorder. These are all chronic mental health issues. So yes, there are some people that do really, really well. Again, good intervention, outpatient mental health treatment is essential for people to live like productive lives. When that's lacking, with support, it's catastrophic. Right. Yes, we see repeat offenders. So to answer your questions, yes, I see a couple of people like every couple months. Right. We have a thing called 30-day readmissions. The hospital really don't want to readmit anybody in 30 days, but some people, their mental health is so severe, and regardless of interventions, they're going to come back. It's only so much that we can do. It's only so much that medication can do. And I was telling you about the psychotic disorders and the mood disorders. If you talk about the people with personality disorders, that's a whole different situation. So the people that have borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, they them people that
histrionic,
show off. Huh?
Histrionic.
They them real like out there people. Like, as
far as have a history of.
No. Histrionic, like they're super dramatic.
Oh, okay.
Like they're them people that are like, and let me just also say, personality disorders are developed through trauma. Okay. A lot of this is childhood trauma.
Expand on that. Give me an example.
Okay, so a kid who was severely neglected, who was sexually abused, who was emotionally abused, that may manifest in a personality disorder. Okay. You might see borderline personality. They're the kids they're cutters. They also have like black and white thoughts about people. Either you're for me or you're against me.
Right.
They have very negative, toxic relationships.
Right.
Like their spouses, they tend to talk horribly to each other. They cheat on each other. They beat on each other. And it's like they thrive off of the drama.
Right.
So it can be a lot. I mean, so the personality disorders, you're really not trying to get them on an inpatient acute unit unless it's specialized in that. So Shepherd Pratt is perfect because they have different like segmented units. They have a eating disorder unit. They have so they have certain stuff. Where I work at, it's just a regular inpatient psych unit, and I've worked it too in my in my career. And it's been the same way. It's like they're just, so we cater more to the people that have the psychosis and the severe mood issues. And we're trying to, like you said, neutralize them and help them transition out.
That's what's up. So I'd like to thank y'all for tuning in. This is Ariel, a local Baltimorean out here doing that great social worker work. Thank you. I fucked up on the end.
That's cool.